Hey everyone, it's Shawn McBride. Welcome back to another edition of Best in Events. I know many of you watch this on recording on our YouTube channel. You may have noticed there was a pause, and for the live viewers as well, you haven't seen us popping up in your feed as much. Took a little bit of a summer break, got reorganized. Deirdre's got some big news, which we'll share with you here in just a second. And then we're going to jump into our guest today, John Chen. He is an expert in virtual events. He's written a book on it, literally. So we thought today we'd spend some time on virtual presentations, spicing it up, really making it something special and something magical. This is a tough area because it's an area that a lot of us have experience with. Myself as a speaker, it's something you kind of transition into. Maybe today you have people starting in the virtual world, but for the most part, most of us start in the in-person presenting world and then transition over or add in or layer in the virtual side. So it brings some challenges with it. So let's pop Dierdra up on the screen for a second, and we'll celebrate with her, and then we'll get to talking to John on some virtual events. So Dierdra, let me get you up here on the camera. Boom.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Tell us what happened.
Well, I got married.
Congratulations.
Yay, another one bites the dust. No, just kidding. Just kidding. No, I joke with him, and he's originally from the UK, so I joke with him that he had to come to Canada to find me. So, but we got married on August 15th, and we originally were supposed to have 100 people at our wedding, and then my venue canceled. So we ended up pivoting. I bought a couple of event tents, and we did it in our yard. We had about 36 people, which was an awesome amount. Got to talk to everybody. We did everybody in tables of deuces, and everybody had their own little package for their table, which included their plates and their cutlery and their glasses and a thing of hand sanitizer and hand wash. As an event planner, I wanted to make sure that all my guests felt extremely comfortable. And, everybody was wearing masks during the ceremony, but kind of a little bit more relaxed during the reception. And it just turned out to be an absolutely wonderful day. The weather was so agreeable. And and we actually streamed it as well. So having to experience a virtual component for my own wedding, and I managed it all. And I had a lot of help on the decor and everything else. But as far as the virtual component, it was basically I set it up and I went to get ready and someone pressed go as soon as the ceremony started.
Awesome. Great. I think that's a real life example of a virtual event where you definitely wouldn't have one in the past. John, that's probably not something you see as much of weddings. I don't know, but yeah, I can cover
not recently.
My suspicion was correct. He's not doing a lot of virtual weddings, but you're working with a lot of businesses and companies, I imagine.
Dierdra, I have a question real quick.
Sure. Go ahead.
So you had a wedding, you had a virtual component. Was a part of it engaging? In other words, do you think was there kind of a cool moment, a highlight, something unexpected that happened?
Oh, and you know what? Very cool, because of course I didn't have access to the feed, and as an event planner, one thing I forgot to do, I forgot to ask someone to record. Okay.
Wait, so, did you stream live or not?
We did. We streamed live.
Yeah, well, good. You have a recording now.
Live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, because we did stream live to Facebook.
I'll show you how to do that.
Okay, great. Perfect. But the nice thing is that family that I had to uninvite was on the stream, and the family in the UK. I had family and friends in Australia and New Zealand, and family in the US. And it was like, oh, I'm her cousin. Oh, I'm her sister. I'm this. I'm not. I've known her for like 3 years and known her forever. So that was the nice thing, is that people were actually using the chat for the ceremony. The highlight was, and on a personal level, the highlight was that my father, who is 84, who had surgery 2 weeks before, was able to be here to walk me down the aisle. And he didn't walk me down the aisle the first time I got married. because he was at work. But that was the really nice thing, is that I was able to have him here. He stayed for the ceremony and a few pictures, and then he left. But that was, that for me, that was the highlight, having my father here with my kids and my new husband and their family. So that, that was the best part, honestly.
I love when events create special moments, right?
Yeah.
That's really
and the best thing, and I, I've managed large weddings, I've managed small weddings, and I'm right now I'm doing on-site management for a wedding venue not that far from me. And everybody, like the other night, we did a wedding for 100 people, and their weddings normally are 800 people.
Oh yeah.
And they were, it was a East Indian couple, and they love to party. They're all about family, and they went from 800 to 100, and they said it was the best experience for them because it was more intimate. And that's what I think is happening with COVID and weddings. They're becoming more intimate. People are actually having to think outside the box on, how can I get married? How can I bring this out to everyone so that, everybody enjoys it, but they might not be able to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so John, that's a perfect segue, I guess. How do we do that in the business world? How do we bring that into all of our meetings and events? How do we get that kind of great experience? Start with a tough question.
Well, it is like that. I knew that a lot of the in-person events are, of course, different now, and most of them, though, I'm doing virtual, and there are some great examples of virtual. I recently got to do meetings today live, and they used Remo, and they had that same hosted buyer program, right, where it's basically you get to meet with a lot of meeting planners, and I think there are definitely some successes around there. I think that in the meetings place, this is kind of like if you tossed everything up, right, and now you have to reset, right, the entire meetings industry. That's what's happening now, and those who are pivoting successfully are the ones who are adapting the fastest, and it is a challenge. I feel for a lot of my friends. Many of them this week continue to get different notices, from furlough to unfortunately layoff, and I feel for this business because we're people. We love to connect, and we want to connect, and but everyone just wants to do it in a somewhat responsible way. So, but I've been seeing a lot on the virtual side. And side note, I want to just give a shout out to my team. I have a collection of people that work together who put together a birthday party, and we streamed, how many hours now? It was, I think, almost 10 hours straight, and we generated 50.56 gigabytes of video from Zoom this Saturday.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know, and I was working Saturday, John, or I would have been on.
You're probably getting married on Saturday, Dierdra.
No, it was the Saturday before, but I was doing a wedding this past Saturday, so.
You did a wedding for somebody else. You did your wedding.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So John, I mean, I guess so. So we talk about that. I mean, what are some of the ways? I mean, because engagement is one of the things you just hit upon, right? Which is, one of the reasons people love in-person events is, you physically can see people. You back in the old days, you would hug people, you would shake their hand, and you would look at them across the room, and maybe you would have a personal story sitting there. I mean, what do you do in a virtual event to bring back some of those deeper networking elements that are so present in our in-person events?
Well, I think the birthday party, and I've actually worked on another meetings professional. Angel Hansen's actually been on the cover of the MPI magazine. I ran her birthday party. That was another 10-hour Zoom, and it just goes to show you that you can make it engaging. It's possible, because people are all now, right? The first piece of guidance is take your 8-hour conference and make it smaller, because people are always having to, challenges with the Zoom burn or video burnout or other types of things like that. So it's possible, but you really have to work hard in the engagement. So the nice part is again, I got a chance to write this new book, which is called Engaging Virtual Meetings. Yes. And some of the concepts around there, like here, I'll give you the first one, which is easy. The word we use is engage, and every letter stands for something. And the first letter in E is engage. And this sounds like a no-brainer, but if you want engaging meetings, reach out. right? If you're on here, we're already chatting inside of here in YouTube. Other ways that you can do is like when you start your video meetings, log on a little early and greet your people by name. All these same things I think that are key in this hospitality industry. You just got to find a way to bring them here into the virtual world. And that's one of the key ways I think to make engagement. Just don't broadcast something. 80% of the program we saw before this was webinars where people came up, threw up slides and talked for 60 minutes. That's not really engaging. Look for the different ways to use all the advantages of the format that we have to be engaging.
Yeah, and I mean, and Dierdra, maybe you have a thought on this. I mean, like when I'm live on a conference and I'm standing in front of a room, I'm reading the room and I'm looking at who's having what reactions, right? And you often find somebody who is reacting to what you're talking about. You can tell they have an experience. You can tell they have an additional thought. That's a little harder to do in Zoom, right? So, Dierdra, what's your thoughts on that? How do we get people more engaged?
Well, I think the biggest thing is knowing exactly who your audience are in advance. Yeah. Getting that information. What's the demographic? Who's if it's a conference where you're an IT conference or something, who are your end users? And I know I'm working on a virtual 25th anniversary event for one of the charities that I support, and we're trying to already get people engaged because we've got people that are going to be talking, we've got a chair that's going to be talking, but we're going to be running some engaging things like doing a dance out and some other stuff to engage people and engaging people to chat online and talk about using the chat room and making sure that people are comfortable with using chat. And we're sending out some ticket information and some gift cards and things like that to engage them. And I think we're, with all of this virtual conferences, I think we're going to get back to the, snail mail of mailing things out to people as opposed to sending them via email. Because then that's that comfy package that it's going to add to that engagement. Mm-hmm. And because people are so inundated with emails all the time, it's like, okay, let's go to the mailbox this week and check the mail.
I don't know if I don't know. You may be aware, Dierdra. I mean, we all pay attention to each other's politics, but mail has become very political in the U.S. now. So,
of course it has. What hasn't become political in the U.S.?
Everything.
That pinky became political about 10 seconds ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The moment I mentioned snail mail, but it's really from the beginning. And as you said, John, greet people as they, before, because they're going to log in before the event starts. So when I do my event on the 19th, we're actually going to be on air 15 minutes before. So we can greet people as they come on. And, we'll unmute people if they want to be unmuted during, so maybe we can have a chat session on what the organization means to them. And we've got speakers, we've got those pre-videotaped, but they are going to be live, and the only reason we pre-videotaped them was just in case,
right?
So that we can, if they're having a problem with their feed, we can pull up the video, and we're doing a run through a couple of days before, so that we can just make sure that everything's there. So you got to engage your team too.
Yeah, what a great practical strategy. And I mean, that's something you can do with a virtual event you can't do with a live event, right? A live event, if you have a speaker issue, you're kind of dead in the water. You have to get creative real fast. But on a virtual event, you can at least replay a video, keep things rolling until you get things back to normal. That's a great idea, isn't it, John?
Oh, yeah. I was just looking too, engagement is what Dierdra is talking about. Engagement is still the number one problem. If you haven't seen the research by Julius Solaris, one of the key speakers in the meetings in hospitality industry, He said that 35%, it's the number one problem. And at 35%, people are saying that engagement in these virtual conferences is the number one challenge. And so looking for different ways to engage. Now, Dierdra, dropping your idea, though, there's so many different ways that you should really look at. One of the other ways, too, is we do sometimes hold people in a breakout room, and then we use kind of the concept of a reveal. We've had people where we let them all in at once. We have music playing. We actually start a dance contest, and then we start spotlighting different people who are dancing. And of course, the person who dances the most energetically, right, will win some kind of gift card or prize. And we're always looking for different ways now too, to how can we make our Zoom meetings different than what's the expected norm. And anytime we do that, I think people realize, oh, well, this meeting is now different. All right. If we can just start from that first moment. So look about how to use the technology that you have to create those moments around there. I think chat too. I put another comment in here. Chat to me is like the second most engaging tool. This audio video channel is the first one. And I think, Shawn, you can see by us being on video, if I turn my video off, you miss all these cues, like, me shaking my head, right? And like, I'm agreeing. I totally resonate with what Dierdra is saying. Without that video aspect, you really need to use that. That's the first most engaging tool, and that chat is the second most engaging tool.
Yeah, and I mean, I was watching a show yesterday where they were replaying something, but it was audio only, and it's a different experience. We're now used to seeing that visual element. We're getting used to it. Cameras are everywhere. People are broadcasting with cameras, and so when you get an audio only program, you're like, something's missing here. I'd like to see that additional information, right? I'd like to see what people's expressions are. Did they really mean what they say, right? Because we do read a lot into kind of people's eye movements and how they position their body when they say things. We learn a lot from the visual.
We can go back to conference calls if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Well, exactly, right?
People want that too. They just like, can we just call?
Yeah, we had a conversation the other day. I was talking to somebody, business owner, and they're like, how often do you use your conference dial-in? I'm like, maybe a couple times a year, or maybe somebody's traveling and they're like, just send me a dial-in. I can't get on video, but more and more now, everybody gets on video, and we learn a lot.
And
right?
Well, and I've had some colleagues and clients go, "Can you just call me, please?"
Yeah,
because they don't want to be on camera. They don't want to be set all the time.
Well, I know a lot of ladies say they have to do their makeup and adjust everything, to get on there, right? It's work.
Camera ready. Are you camera ready? Oh, and then you have to apologize, right? Oh, sorry, not camera ready. You got to turn my camera off.
Yes.
Hey, I'm always camera ready. Gotta be when you're doing these kind of shows. And I was on site this morning at my clients doing setup for a wedding this weekend. And I got to be home by 12 because I got a 2 o'clock and I got to spend time on hair and makeup.
Yep.
You guys are lucky.
Me too, Dierdra.
Okay.
You have no idea.
We used to. So I used to do a series with Shannon Gregg, and I think she talked about this publicly, so I think I can share. We interviewed sales leaders, and we do it on Friday morning. So she would text me sometimes and be like, "When's our first sales leader on?" And I'd tell her, and she's like, "Okay, that lets me know when I have to start doing my hair." So she'd work backwards.
Exactly. So, John, can you tell me, since COVID has happened, and I know that you've been doing virtual for a long time. And you've got geo teams and whatnot. But tell me, since COVID's happened, what has been, I guess I'll say, your best experience with doing virtual, other than your birthday?
Well, thank you, Dierdra. One of the pieces I started calculating, and that I've been meeting online for 35 years. So, Shawn, do you remember, Shawn or Dierdra, do any of you remember Prodigy?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I remember dial-up internet. Like soon I'll be able to type a web address into the browser.
Phone coupler. Prodigy was a modem based meeting, and my brother and I actually created a closer relationship during that time because we were both on Prodigy. And then I've been tracking this as we go along, and the key here is that as every new technology came out, it was interesting to see how do people interact with it. from the positive things of being able to connect with people around the world to the challenging things like flame wars. Flame wars, remember, that used to happen on email. That basically, I think it's called social media now, but where people like would fight with each other, and introverts would fight for the first time too, because they felt comfortable finally behind the guise of email to say some of the things that they really thought. And so I was always looking for what is the dynamics for us as humans using technology to meet and communicate with each other. In terms of magical moments that are coming around, one is really meeting people from around the world. I put a class on in early as March when we had our first work from home order. And I've been doing virtual team building now. I wrote my first book in 2011. So we were practicing this part, but nobody would buy it. Everyone's like, Dierdra, that's a great idea, but here's some money for that face-to-face event. Here, let's do that instead.
Yeah.
And then in March, I like to say, all right, everyone suddenly got interested again. And so I've probably run 200 classes since March, and I've gotten to meet people from Hungary, Slovakia, right, New Zealand, right, Georgia, not the state, the country, Georgia.
The country.
Yeah, the country. And so I think those are some of my best moments about truly connecting the world and discovering too, really everybody in the world is having this stay-at-home experience, not just one region in the world. And the second thing I think that really comes around is people who are learning how to create emotional moments online. And so one of my mentors, Ed Cohen, had a piece where a guy at the end of it said, I wrote a piece of poetry from the last meeting we're at, and I now feel comfortable enough I'd like to read it. And you can clearly see it was a challenge for him. But when he read it, the whole meeting changed. The whole meeting changed because he was really doing something that was vulnerable for him, and that everybody online supported him. And that moment wouldn't have happened, I think, without coronavirus.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that you bring up an interesting point, which is it changes the dynamic of who can participate, right? If we do the online the right way, we maybe have a different subset of people participating. So it's going to create a different dynamic than we would have in an in-person meeting. We may have different people participating, different people with saying things, new opinions coming out that we may not be able to have in an in-person meeting.
And I think that with virtual, once we are able, and I know that meetings have started on this smaller scale, and I know there's some meetings that are taking place in Vegas in October and things like that. But once we're able to get back even to doing more regional events where there's more than 100 people in a room, I think what we will see is a lot more of the hybrid, where they're going to bring in that virtual component and engage people in other towns and cities to be a part of the whole process, but also the whole conference, because knowing that many companies are going to say, nope, not paying for travel anymore. We know we can do this virtually. So you want to go to that conference, you can go virtually.
Yeah. Plus, I think some of the more conservative companies are saying, hey, let's just wait a year for travel, right? No travel until, and I've seen some companies already decree like mid 2021, right? So nobody on that company is getting on a plane until mid 2021 because they don't want people bringing COVID back. But John, that brings up another interesting point, right? Now you don't just have to get your virtual meeting engaged. Now you have to figure out how to blend that together with engagement in person.
Yeah. In the book, I got a chance to talk with somebody who was doing it. So Tara Lashenko is one of the top MPI meeting facilitators. And so she's going to multiple chapters, and some of them were virtual and some of them were hybrid. And like this hybrid, one, I want to give a shout out to many of the pioneers in the meetings field. I think was it Basecamp, or there were numerous events where people were just experimenting with bringing people on social media and other places, and they developed like how to create on-air presence and how to keep a hybrid audience engaged. But Tara really had here's one of the most basic tips is that one was having everybody at their own desk. Their own desk was 6 feet apart, so that was the safe part. But having a microphone at every single station meant that the online people could finally hear everybody talk.
Yes,
something as simple as that.
Yeah, there's kind of a hardware component to it. We talked to somebody earlier who was sending out boxes, right? So they were doing birthday parties and events, and if you were invited, right, this is kind of a premium thing, but they would ship you the confetti and the different things and the color theme things, right? So sometimes just a little bit of that extra legwork can make a big difference. I know I did a presentation for one group, and I have a nice microphone here, but they sent me their microphone. They're like, we use this microphone with all our speakers. It controls it. We know what we're getting. Use this microphone. They actually mailed me a microphone to control it. So there's some thought to be given to those kind of things for quality control and standardization.
Well, one of the keys here, Shawn, though, is like if you've seen the stats, right, 60 to 70 to 80% of a large meeting or convention's budget is spent on the travel, the food and beverage, and the hotel. And now, if you don't have that money there, you can. And I think it was something only like 5 to 8% is actually spent on the design of the meeting and the speakers for the meeting, the educational content. And now you might be able to spend more and more on that portion and hopefully get those key people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does give you the ability perhaps to up your content game, right, Dierdra?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I've, are you there? Am I there?
Yeah, you're there. We hear you. We're hearing you. We're hearing you just fine.
Yeah, because I think that I've done conferences where I'm working with $500,000 budgets. And you're right, John, the hotel, food and beverage, all that other stuff is so much higher than, and it's going to be higher now. So being able to do a hybrid where you can engage more people externally is going to be probably much better for companies.
Yeah. So, John, maybe some tips and tricks on that. I mean, how do we think about that in advance? So we send them some people hardware. We got physical layout issues. What else comes into play in these considerations?
In hybrid or in virtual?
Yeah, hybrid. What else should we be thinking about? And how do we perhaps get interaction? I mean, and one thing I'm thinking off the top of my head is, how do I get people that are at the in-person part interacting with the people that are at the virtual part, right? So we know how to get people interacting with each other at the virtual part. We know how to get people interacting with each other in the in-person part. Is there a way to get people to cross over between the two?
So I did get a chance to work on a 200-person conference for a Fortune 100 company, and the 200 people were around the world. So this conference actually was going on all the time. There was a live program that was here in the United States. Then there was a watch party that started a few hours later in Asia. It was based in Singapore. And then another watch party that started a few hours after that in London, right? So for EMEA, Europe, Middle Eastern, and Africa. And so it was amazing to watch how the system worked, which is we recorded these pieces live. It was already streamed. So we would give instructions. And so the Asia would actually start watching it. And the key that I can tell you about a hybrid is the N in engage stands for never lead a meeting alone. For this 200-person meeting, we have a 36-person team where there was people stationed in every single region to help make it interactive. So even though you're presenting pre-recorded content, it was live. There was a live team facilitating there. There was an MC. There was chat moderators. Right. So that they had all of those pieces. And somebody from EMEA at the end of this conference said normally they felt left out. Right. So like, when you're remote, sometimes you feel like the child at the kids' table at Thanksgiving in terms of the meeting presence. But this is the first time they came back. They said, I am as engaged or more engaged. And they said it came from the fact that they could actually pause the keynote speaker. And by pausing the keynote speaker, they could have a long discussion about a very important point in the moment and then replay the speaker. And you can't do that. You can't do that live.
No, you can't do that. And I actually love it, right? I mean, because you talk about adding emphasis in the right spot, right? And live, sometimes, we have a discussion moment or we kind of have a little audience interaction, but it would just completely change the flow to stop and go to an audience interaction, then put the keynoter back up. But to pause it, man, that's powerful. That's amazing stuff. So that's just a great innovation. And I think that maybe brings you the spirit of innovation with a virtual event, right? Is you can say, how can we experiment? What can we try that we can't try in person? And it's thinking outside the box more than just saying, hey, pop somebody in a Zoom window and let's watch them.
Yeah. In the hybrid too, I believe that hybrid is really going to be coming more into play. And one is, I know our air travel is challenging. So a lot of it is within driving distance is what's going to drive that. This is where properties can come back in, though. If properties can create safe spaces, and I've met many of them, and I've been to a few of them, can create safe space for you to gather again. Then they can create that regional piece, and then you really have to have that video piece, which is have somebody figure out how do you tie in all your different regions so that you feel like you're one meeting. And I think that's again, connection is really the what people are looking for. And I go back to the two core pieces why we always meet, right? Networking and education. If you can recreate networking and education in whatever format, I believe that you will have something that's successful.
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of my general business concepts. I always tell the world, like, know what your goals are, right? And I think that really is a fundamental thing. If you're the meeting planner planning it, right? What are your goals here? What are you trying to do? And you probably are. That's probably the number one, number two thing you're trying to accomplish is get people connected with each other, deepen relationships, and then present valuable materials, right? So if we go back to that and don't say, how do we do this in the past? You say, how do I get the best networking? How do I get the best education out? That's how you get some of them thinking outside the box moments you were talking about.
Yeah, and they can be recreated. They can be recreated here in virtual or in hybrid in so many locations. People just don't know how, though. I think that you really need to work. You need to experiment, and you got to look at all the new tools coming out. I think that's one of the biggest things, Shawn. Oh, I just saw a piece of research, Shawn. I don't know if you've seen this. Twilio put out a piece of research, and it says that COVID advanced meeting and communications technology by 6 years in the last 5 months.
Yeah.
I am not surprised by that. I am not surprised by it. So, John, I know you and I think, I want to give you a chance to, show your piece of expertise. You popped it up for a second, but you put together a book where you went together and kind of looked at what people were doing, and you're giving people tips and tricks so they can kick their game up, right? Because, like everything else in business, why reinvent the wheel if you can learn from other people? So you want to talk a little bit about that, how you came to put this together, and maybe what's in there for people that might be considering it?
Yeah, maybe I can actually finish a few of the last tips. So here's the story behind the book, right? And Shawn and Dierdra, this is kind of for those who are listening to this, answer this question for yourself. And the question is, what's a gift that coronavirus has given you, right? What's a gift that coronavirus has given you? And what I mean by that for me is that I started putting on these trainings. I got picked up by a website and the class went viral. I started putting out emails to my group, and my publisher replied back and he goes, "Oh, this is interesting. Do you want to write your second book?" And for those who are entrepreneurs out there, all right, and want to be leaders, just say yes. Just like, yeah, of course I do. And so I wrote this book, and I literally wrote this book in 1/3 of the time that I wrote my first book. Yep. And that's not easy. I was averaging 6,000 words a day for the last few days of writing. I read that Mark Twain averaged about 1,600 words a day over his lifetime. Wow. So it just gives you that. People have also asked this question online too, right? What's one thing that coronavirus has made you realize? Like, I could write a book in 1/3 of the time. I think I could have said that. And so what I've done with this is that what was great is that because of my experience, all these things that I've had known and I have tested them out over the last 20 plus years, became even more true. And that's where engaging people, creating psychological safety, that's something we talk about, that's how we get people who don't have their cameras on or people who might be shy to engage. All these theories that I had around there have been put into practice, that you can do team building online, that you can that humans still have the same problems of communication and trust online, and that there are ways to fix that. And so in there, it's around 6 key principles, right? Engage, it stands for engage. E is engage and interact with every attendee. So have a plan about how to interact, right? N is never lead a meeting alone. And my biggest meetings and my important meetings, I have a team, all right? I have multiple people that are helping either produce the meeting or some other role. And G is good looks, like here. So if you can hear my mic well, it's because I'm using a pro mic. If you like something that you see in here, it's because I've kind of took the time to design this. So look good online. Let's see. A is air traffic control, which is 2 or more of us can't really talk online very well. You can't understand us well. So have someone be that moderator to help create some air traffic control so we don't collide, especially on large groups. G is get productive with virtual tools. There are so many productive tools and virtual tools that people are not using. that you really need to look at. Like right now, we use simultaneously editing of documents. I learned that Adrian Sagar showed this 10 years ago. He ran a conference, 45 people simultaneously edited a Google Doc and wrote a case study in 90 minutes or less altogether. And the last one is end on a high note, right? So end on a high note is look for a way for your meeting to end at the end. We came from product research that says in a 60-minute demo, if you can architect a high note in your last 5 minutes of your demo, people will more likely to buy. And I feel like your virtual meetings are the same way. Find a way to end as opposed to just clicking leave and having everyone take off. Do something, have everyone check in, right? Put a graphic, play a piece of music, something like that. End on a high note, and people will be more likely to be engaged and ready for your next meeting.
Yep, I see it. Yeah, that's a great idea. So, just great fundamental tips, and really you've thought through it. So, and you kind of chronicled all these together, right, John? You've kind of built the framework, and then you've given people, I imagine you've given them tips and case studies there.
And we have stories, right? For those who, I'm on the persuader style or, ENTJ, we have stories for them to show, what happens when you do it great. And of course, when you don't do it so great. Oh, can I share one of these stories?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Kathy Armias shared a story. Cynthia Clay shared a story, and it's around team building, right? So she had a virtual retreat. She actually has a company, and they've been teaching people online. So they had a virtual retreat like 2 or 3 years ago. They brought in a team builder, and she did a great job team building. And then she goes, okay, now wait, how do I turn off my camera? And she goes, oh yeah, go ahead and hit the stop video, blah, blah, blah. So she gets up, and she thinks the camera stopped, and she gets up, and it turns out that she is not wearing pants. She has something from Victoria's Secret on, and then of course she turns away from the camera and then leans down to pick something up off the floor, and they have never not unseen that anymore, and that led them to their very important tip: always
wear pants.
That's right.
Always
I mean, so many people are tempted by the idea of only doing half the dress up. In fact, I saw an article where when we hit COVID, a lot of retailers were selling more tops than bottoms, right? I mean, usually the two kind of correlate with each other, right? People buy shirts and pants, and suddenly some retailers were selling a lot more shirts and top articles than they were coats, whatever, than they were pants and bottoms.
Yeah, and I think just to go back to your question, John, about I guess one of the positives about COVID is it reconnected Shawn and I.
Yes.
And he had interviewed me in February of 2019 about the future of events and about the networking aspect and things that I had learned about what people wanted and everything else like that. And then of course COVID hit. So I reached out to Shawn and said, love to be able to take this a little bit further. And the Best in Events show, which is where we've had industry professionals on, I think since March, averaging 1 to 2 shows a week, or maybe more, depending on how many we get scheduled. We get another call on Thursday. And so it's brought, I think we've brought together industry professionals and what I like to call experts to give their thoughts about what's going on in the industry right now, so that we can glean some best practices along the way. And I've been working remotely for 15 years. So it didn't affect me, other than business-wise, it did affect me for like the last 6 months. But it's something that I've done. I've brought teams together virtually all over the world, working on conferences, and then we arrive on site. So it's been really great to be able to already have that experience of working virtual.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's, Dierdra and I reconnected, and we've built something here. We said, hey, we got to get out and help people understand what's happening in the meetings world. And this would not exist, and it's upped our knowledge and certainly helped us, continue to network and continue to build and develop professionally in this process. So yeah, there's blessings out there, right? I mean, we can all make the best of it, and we can do the same thing with our meetings too, right?
Yeah, Shawn, I've seen this time as like one of the greatest times for collaboration that I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten, especially in March and April, there was definitely that like vacuum that kind of was created. And there were so many different people who reached out and collaborated and are trying to find, I think we're in that slightly second stage, which is people are trying to find whatever their stride is, if they have one, all right, and trying to groove onto it. And I'll be curious to see what the next part of this year brings to us. But I really thought that piece of collaboration in the beginning of the year was something that was good and unique.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it gives us a lesson for going forward, right? We make the best of everything, including our meetings, right? We up our game. We sit back, we scratch our head, just like Dierdra and I did at the beginning of the year. And we said, hey, the whole world changed. I'm not sure what to do, right? And then at some point you say it's time to go forward, right? I can't just pause my meetings forever. I can't just keep waiting to see if the hotel reopens. At some point, I need to figure out a plan to come forward. And that's where, getting your book and kind of doing an analysis of where we're headed may help people.
Yeah, so my theory from the beginning of the year was fail faster. So what I mean by fail faster was put out as much stuff as you thought was there and figure out what works and what doesn't work and do it very quickly. And those who waited, and by the way, Shawn and Dierdra, a lot of people have waited. I think the stat is like 60 to 70% of people with conferences have either postponed or canceled. As opposed to, so that's what the Julius's research said. The next wave, the big wave of virtual hasn't even shown up yet. No. It's going to show up when people kind of finally go, oh, we got to do something.
Yeah. And I certainly know destination management people and site selection people that like they're really concerned at this point that their conferences for Q1 and the beginning of Q2 are going to get canceled, and they're gone. And even when you look at the and I'll go back to the wedding side, the venue that I'm working with right now, she's got weddings booked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday throughout the whole wedding season next year.
Wow. Yeah, but it's uncertain because you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Well, and they're regulated to 100 people right now, and they have a 200 person tent. So we have to really be aware of what may happen. We don't even know if we're into a second wave of COVID yet. They are talking about it. We just don't know when that's going to be. Will it be in October when all the kids are back to school full time, or will it be towards the Christmas time?
Exactly. So, John, I mean, talk about that point too, with this uncertainty of COVID, recurrences of COVID, unexpected shutdowns. How can people kind of use the virtual event thing to give them an alternate plan or a backup plan, or they can maybe change their allocation between the in-person and the online for a virtual event? How can they plan for that?
Well, number one is Shawn and Dierdra, we're in the wrong business. We should be in the weddings future business, right? We should get all those extra slots and just hold on to them, and then we can actually or create the secondary market for creating wedding options, right? No, seriously. What are the options? I think this is my own personal view, and there's a lot of views out there. But number one is that I'm planning to be virtual until I can demonstratively see that we can do it in a safe way.
Yeah.
And even I have done one in-person meeting, and when they said they wanted to do it in person, I kind of stopped for a second going, really? Do I want to do this? Do I want to be a part of this? And they let me run the medical protocol. And so we did everything, that I've heard, I've seen. I have some people in the business, so they helped me. I mean, we did temperature checks. They were mask and glove on the way in. They either washed their hand and then they sanitized. In a 200-person building, we had 17 people. We did a one-way through the mic, and it was really to equalize the AV for each of these presenters. And on top of it all, it was 12 Black-owned entrepreneurs here in Seattle presenting in a program that's called Sharks on the Beach, like it's a Shark Tank style program. And so it was really worthy. And what was cool about it, like this is talk about opportunity. Normally 150 to 200 people show up live for this program. But in this case, we took the strategy. We told everyone, stay home, go on Facebook Live, but share the stream. 150 people shared the stream and now over 12,000 people have viewed the video, and it has a 20,000 reach, and they never would have had this before. This was almost $0 of marketing budget.
Yeah, no, and I've heard this same phenomenon a lot of places where people have said, we had a budget and a room, and of course, you know, you have a pretty high cost per person with a hotel because you've got to rent the space and get the catering, food, everything else, right? High cost per person. But as soon as you go virtual, cost per person goes down. So we've seen a lot of people take a 300 person conference and turn it into a 3,000 person conference because you can scale like that online.
ASAE, right? 14,000 record number.
Yep. So there you go, right? I mean, so it creates a world of opportunity. I think the big thing is thinking outside the box and going a whole new analysis, right? It's just don't say this was my in-person event. Now I'm going to turn it into a virtual event and just try to move everything over. It's a chance to completely redevelop.
And I think, Shawn, what's really changed the whole dynamic is like, we love in-person meetings, but when an in-person meeting can lead to somebody being sick or even leading to die, it just changes the entire dynamics of it. And I know for me, but most of the meeting professionals I know of, we do not want to be part of that PR for that event.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely, John. So you're a wealth of information on this. How do people go deeper, get to know more about you, and check out more of your work and get your book too?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm at geoteaming.com. You see it on screen, geoteaming.com. If you go to /EVM for engaging virtual meetings, we have a free class that we give every Wednesday. I would love to see you there, Shawn. And that we give that class back to the world. That's really our free part. And then I'm working on releasing an engagingvirtualmeetings.com website. And I hope that I know that there's it's September 1st. On October 21 through 24, we're going to actually be running our first Engaging Virtual Meetings conference. And that registration for that should be coming out within 1 to 2 weeks. 9 of the top world's virtual speakers will be there.
Awesome, man. That sounds amazing. It sounds like a great place. People can go get those resources. Go check that out, folks. Dierdra, thanks for another wonderful show. Congratulations again. John, you were an amazing guest. Folks out there, pat yourself on the back for doing the hard work, investing in your future. We do really appreciate you being here. Make sure you're subscribed to the Best in Events YouTube channel. Tell your friends. We'll be back with another live episode later this week, so be checking your feeds for that. And we're going to jump back more into it. September of 2020, as John mentioned. And Deirdre's, we took our little summer break, let Dierdra get her wedding done, and we are jumping back in it. So more great guests coming. So we're looking forward to seeing y'all again. John, thanks for being such a fantastic guest today.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.